tells you a lot about the priorities of our ruling class that the rest of us are getting yet another lecture about January 6th tonight from our moral inferiors, no less. An outbreak of mob violence, a forgettably minor outbreak by recent standards that took place more than a year and a half ago, but they've never stopped talking about it. In the meantime, in the 18 months since January 6th, gas prices have doubled. Drug ODs have reached their highest point ever. The U.S. economy is now careening toward a devastating recession at best. And scariest and least noted of all, this country has never in its history been closer to a nuclear war. Yet the other networks cannot be bothered to cover any of that tonight. Instead, they've interrupted their regularly scheduled programming to bring you yet another extended primetime harangue from Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney about Donald Trump and QAnon. The whole thing is insulting. In fact, it's deranged, and we're not playing along. This is the only hour on an American news channel that will not be carrying their propaganda live. They are lying, and we are not going to help them do it. What we will do instead is to try to tell you the truth. We've attempted to do that since the day this happened. We hated seeing vandalism at the U.S. Capitol a year and a half ago, and we said so at the time. But we did not think it was an insurrection because it was not an insurrection. It was not even close to an insurrection.
Yes, a minor outbreak in violence. First of all, thousands of insurrectionists stormed the U.S. Capitol looking to assassinate the Vice President and the Speaker of the House. I'm not sure what part of that qualifies as minor, although I'm not super surprised that Tucker Carlson wasn't concerned about these people considering they're his people. Like, yeah, insurrectionists probably aren't that scary if you're on the side of the insurrectionists. And second, Tucker says it's 1.5 years ago, as if this was in the 1940s, as if we've been investigating this since the days of the printing press. Like, dude, it was last January, and the guy responsible for the insurrection, as of now, is the presumptive Republican nominee for 2024. His co-conspirators are literally in Congress and currently running for re-election. And the entirety of the Republican Party and conservative media are all still parroting the exact same lie that incited the events of January 6th in the first place. It's not some historical event, it's still happening right now. January 6th wasn't the end, it was the beginning. It was a blueprint. Also, Tucker says that it was all of 1.5 years ago, as if the Republicans didn't investigate Benghazi until more than 4 years after it happened. As if Fox itself didn't air nearly 1,100 segments on Benghazi. The attack on Benghazi happened in September of 2012. The Republican-controlled Select Committee issued its report in December of 2016. And that was a committee that was admittedly political. The whole point of that committee was to hurt Hillary Clinton. How do I know? Because Kevin McCarthy was too stupid not to realize that he probably shouldn't say that part out loud.
Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was unbeatable, right? But we put together a Benghazi special committee, a select committee. What are her numbers today?
So, investigating a literal coup attempt from last January is apparently overkill, but 4 years and 10 investigations into Benghazi for what Kevin McCarthy himself admitted was to hurt Hillary Clinton? Totally fine. Am I getting that right? Here's the thing. Tucker's protest against the investigation into January 6th is as obvious as the day is long. The guy is a partisan hack who will say anything, regardless of how shameless or ridiculous it is, because his sole goal is to continue to perpetuate the big lie and the political violence and any other strategy that will help his political allies assume power. That's all. He knows January 6th was a violent insurrection, and if the tables were turned and Democrats stormed the Capitol, dear God, we would hear about it so much that his fascist cackle would be permanently seared into our brains until the end of time. But he's defending it because he wanted it to happen. He agrees with it. He is the symptom of a much larger rot on the right, wherein Republican officials and media figures are perfectly content to lie to their supporters and treat them like absolute gum on the bottom of their shoe idiots if it means they can convince those people to help the right assume power. If it means they can convince them that you could pressure Mike Pence hard enough, and in turn, he'll somehow be able to turn his perfunctory role into one that allows you to unilaterally decide the election results. It is about lying to the people who trust you. That's all this is about. Tucker's not some visionary, he's not some media genius, he's not some generational voice. He's a demagogue and a liar and a self-important prick. But most importantly, he's scared because he and his Christo-fascist friends are losing influence in this country. What we're seeing right now from these Republicans isn't the celebration of some movement in its prime, it is the last gasps of a dying party, desperately clawing for relevance in a country that is increasingly rejecting what they're selling. And that waning relevance, that fear, that's all Tucker Carlson embodies. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And to support my work beyond that, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I cover the week's most important stories and interview the biggest players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, and so many more. The link is also right here on this screen. And finally, to take action yourself and sign petitions on the most important issues, go to briantylercohen.com/petition.